So I look at it through my eyes as a trial lawyer.
Okay.
And having that experience. And I think a lot of people, including commentators who don't have trial experience, don't always understand how difficult this is for the victims, the families, for the defendant. This was not a win for anybody, by the way, today.
And we should remind people of that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, there is a young man who is dead.
Yep.
And that is front and center, and that's going to be front and center for the district attorney. But I always look at, what do the facts look like, but what are the techniques involved? We looked at openings, we watched closings together. It's a long and complicated trial, and I think the jury could have lost their way a long part of it just because it was confusing.
Well, and I was asking David Bieniek about that as well, because he sat in that courtroom the whole entire time.
He did a great job, by the way.
Yes, he did. Had their own experts.
Yes.
So it took this person this long to drive to this location, but the cell phone shows this. A lot of it was very confusing.
And contradictory. You did have a lot of technology that they had to look at. I did think the prosecutor in his closing pulled a lot of it together with his charts, but still, the jury sits there day after day. They draw impressions on the lawyers. Who is helping them? Who is not? Who do they like? Which witnesses do they just not agree with?
And that's real. It is.
It's
Who
very
do we
real.
like?
How they feel.
How do we feel? How are we being moved in this case?
Absolutely. And for trial lawyers, you're always trying to connect with the jury and hope you can be helpful to them. But this was a long and meandering trial, lots of days off. There were other schedule issues that weren't anybody's fault, really. So this does not surprise me that this is a mistrial. Obviously, we don't know what the numbers were or how it went, but some folks felt she was guilty of something, others did not. And that's a quintessential hung jury.
Do the numbers matter? Does it matter? And will we ever find out the numbers in terms of who thought what in this jury?
We may not, but we may get some inkling. Sometimes court officers have a sense. Sometimes jurors, and the judge is speaking with the jurors, she will tell them, you don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to talk to press. You don't have to talk to lawyers, but you can. And so sometimes we get an indication of that. Often in hung juries, though, they may not want to. I'm guessing that they probably felt they put a lot of time and energy into it. It's got to be unsatisfying for the jurors also. So we may not know, but it does matter, I think, because if it's one or two people on one side or the other, it gives you pause.
Right. Why did he come right out and say, we're retrying this case? Why? Why so quickly?
Often because he wants to let the family know that they're going to move forward. Defense made the comment that they're going to be there. They don't give up. They don't quit. That issue, particularly in this kind of media age, it was important to send that message.
Well, how about Karen Read as well? You talked about, the jury connecting with the lawyers, but also connecting with the defendant or not connecting.
Yes.
And she had said that she would testify in her own defense, but ultimately did not.
So I never know how much jurors factor that in. They're not supposed to. They're told they don't have to. There are many times where they don't have to. And I thought in this case, she didn't have to testify, that defense had enough places to raise reasonable doubt, that she didn't have to take the stand. So that was a prudent decision on her part. But remember, other than the lawyers, who are the jurors looking at through the whole trial? She is there. They can see family come in and out, but every time there's a ruling,
she's center stage.
She is.
And she was rebuked by the judge.
She was once at the end there, but they can form their own impressions, whether they feel sorry for her or I do think this jury was not swayed by what else was going on. I think the judge and the jurors, and that's my impression. We've tried high-profile cases for a long time in Massachusetts.
Right.
And I think the jurors pretty much pay attention, but they're not oblivious that this is a case that's divided a community. I think even though they're not focused on that necessarily, that they know that there is this kind of feeling about this case.
I don't know, but there are a lot of people who have been peripheral and not really invested, and there are many people who think this is, I know every single detail of it. But what you heard again and again is, oh, there's enough reasonable doubt. Oh, there's enough reasonable doubt. This is fine. She's going to walk. And yet, what you saw was the law working today. Is that correct? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. I think it was the law and some of the facts. And I always think jurors do use their common sense because remember, nobody thought that, everybody thought someone had killed him. Someone killed John O'Keefe. And when you have two competing ideas of how that happened, if people don't agree or don't think the defense's theories raise a reasonable doubt, that could be different. However, they could have just found we don't know what happened. We don't know who killed him. And that could have been the basis for the hung jury.